Welcome, everybody, and thank you all for being here. This is the 24-hour Bible study, Coach Les and Sujata Against All Odds live podcast. And we are here today I'm here today with my podcast partner, Sujata, who has written a book, Against All Odds, No Retakes, No Manuals, Real Life Lessons. Sujata has accumulated a wealth of experiences during her life, leading to insights and knowledge that cannot be coached or taught in a class. She's a mother, a wife, a journalist, a consultant, an activist, a leader, and a businesswoman domestically and internationally. In sharing her story, Sujata strives to provide readers of all backgrounds in any part of the world with real-life examples on how to deal with the unpredictable nature of everyday life. And I'm super happy to welcome, and we are currently in 2 clubs on Clubhouse, and we're on 5 Facebook platforms, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. So we are here to spread the word, and our conversation has been one of those where we are, over the past couple of days, we have been speaking about the conversations of, oh my goodness, now where am I? Here we go. Why do people give importance to things that no longer matter? And at some level, keeping alive relationships that have ended. And the other day, we had a lady in the room who came in here and said, my aunt and uncle had a very bad relationship. My uncle, we believe, murdered my aunt, but had 2 kids. And when he died, we got an invitation to go to the funeral, and we ended up sending flowers and making amends with the past and forgiving, for the simple fact, for our cousins. And inside of that conversation, I agreed and said, yes, that's the perfect way to do it. Why would you want to chip on your shoulder somebody that's passed away that impacts your relationship with your cousins? Or in the case of their mom, niece and nephew, when they had nothing to do with it. And so one of the things that we wanted to continue to unearth here in this conversation is, when there are broken families. And what I mean by broken families, people get divorced. They have a couple of kids. They get divorced, and they both get into new relationships. And there's a toxic environment with the significant others. And I look at that and I say, there is no room for that. There is no cause for that. All that does is damage the relationship with the kids, and it doesn't teach or demonstrate to the kids forgiveness, growing, and moving on. And so in tonight's podcast, in tonight's conversation, I would love to hear stories about situations which you may be involved with yourself, or you may be interested in getting in. You may be looking at those particular situations currently. And I think it's a place for us as a society, when there is so much divorce in society and so many split families, that the opportunity to come together and create a family nucleus that works. Now, what do I mean by that? The father of my kids was the best man in my wedding. My stepson was the groomsman at my wedding to his mom. And we have an amazing relationship. And part of that was created while I was dating Kristen, my current wife. And we created an opportunity to be able to put the past in the past, all our past relationships, and to move forward in creating something that works. And throughout the pandemic, I had the pleasure and the blessing of having the father's kid, the kid's father, over for dinner every Sunday night. We sat around, had a great time at the table, and life was good. And I believe that is possible. Is it easy? No. Does it require playing the game of adult versus a 12-year-old spoiled kid or emotionally unstable person? Yep, it does. It requires setting all of that aside. So with that, I want to introduce my second half on the podcast and say hello to Sujata and hear her comments, her story, and some references to her book, because I think this will be an opportunity for her to talk a little bit about her book, as well as joining in the conversation. So the mic is yours, Sujata.
Thank you, Coach Les. And your case study is, I would like to say, it's like almost like a fairy tale in in the world, because it's very rare for what you have achieved. You might want to do the right thing, but it takes everybody also to come on the same page. It takes two to tango, right? So unless they were all a part of what you set out to create, it would have been difficult. That's why it is difficult in most cases, because not everybody has the same kind of mindset of letting the past be the past and of moving on and having a certain amount of cordial relationship, which is actually doable if one sets their mind to it. But very often we may say past in the past, but we also tend to put the baggage inside somewhere in our head. We may seem to move on, but it's there. So it's just that you're dealing with a situation where outwardly you have moved on. But have you really moved on is the question. If you keep thinking about the person, if you think about what's happened all the time, then you haven't moved on. Physically you may have moved on. It's like changing your location. You may change your location, but things don't go away just by changing location. It may help a little bit in the short term, not in the long term. uh, just to give one case study from myself, I had this aunt who was in England. And when I went to her the first time, it was my first visit there, and I was so excited. And my aunt and uncle, they both were in the second marriage at a mature age. So they both had divorces earlier, they both had children, and none of the children kept in touch with either of the parents. So to keep in touch with this new set of parent was of course not a thing which was going to happen ever. In that situation, when the niece from overseas came, what I witnessed was that even though they had married, they were fighting like cats and dogs, literally. And it was not the most pleasant holiday that I could imagine, that to first time overseas. Anyway, the bottom line was that in one of the fights, aunt got so mad at my uncle that she took it out on me, and she says, "Don't ever come back here." As a visitor to somebody's house, if your host tells you don't come back here, that to a relative, how would you feel? Anyway, I went back, but what I'm trying to say is that I didn't hold any grudges. And at the end of the day, when that aunt died, which she died after my uncle had passed away, Guess what? It was this niece who went when she was ill and dying, and did my best in that few moments that I could do. And that's how it is. So it takes a lot of mental, emotional space for you to actually get out of it. I did forgive her. I may not have forgotten what she has said, that's true, but I didn't dwell on it or harp on it. And I think the distance mattered. It would have been quite difficult. Suppose I was living in the same city and, we had a strained relationship. So distance sometimes helps, and it depends on how you think. So at the end of the day, I tend to believe that people act based on their mindsets, and it's not always anything to do with me. You had a fight with somebody, you took it out on me, period. That demonstrates who you are, not me, if that makes any sense.
Definitely. The question that becomes, though, are you able to set aside the animosity to create something greater than the interactions of animosity?
Like I said, if the other side is also willing, definitely yes. I try. And if they are not willing, then I let it go. It's no use holding on to something when the other person is dead set on keeping it alive. Then I have to move on.
Yeah, it is definitely it's definitely not a walk in the park. It definitely requires stepping outside of the comfort zone and
Yes.
into a place where um, there's a lot of unknown and a lot of trusting the human spirit and human condition. And I think that, to me, is one of the things that I don't believe I would be as good at doing that if I was not in the place that I am as a Christian. As a Christian, I have been able to step back and see the opportunity of forgiving another human being. And in that forgiveness, create a miracle. And I do believe that there are people that are unable to do that, or maybe even unwilling to do that. I know that it requires setting ego aside. Right, Sujata?
Right. I think we have to have a healthy dose of respect and kindness in our communications to deal with such situations.
Yeah, it really is. Um, a very interesting phenomenon, because we're dealing with the filters that exist in that other human being's mind from their past view of the relationships that they now see before them. And I think that's never very easy.
It's actually one of the hardest things. It's very easy to break relationships, but it's very difficult to, build back broken relationships.
Yes, I agree. So I'd love to invite Carrie or Marcus or Terrence up on stage to have a conversation with us, to perhaps take a look at some of the things that you've done in your life. It looks like there's a few people that are listening online. Would love to hear your comments. Would love to.
I invited Carrie because I think she can contribute to this.
Beautiful. I know that, as always, it's a difficult situation. And it's something that I believe many families don't want to talk about. It's easier to ignore it. It's easier to walk away from it. It's easier to keep what I would call a very powerful, no, I'm not interested conversation alive and real. And that, I believe, is the place to start. Because when I looked at starting my relationship with Kristen, having known many of the relationships around me with broken homes, where there's always an argument with a stepdad, an argument with a stepmom, a disagreement between the new mother and the stepmother, the new father and the old father. So there's to be able to create a wave of clear conversation, a wave of peaceful communication in the interests of creating a workable environment for the kids. And I know when we do that, the possibilities are endless. Does that make sense, Sujata?
Yeah, because keeping it bottled up or keeping it under the rug or keeping the clutter in your mind is not going to serve anybody any purpose. You might land up with a lot of regrets, especially when somebody probably after years passes away and you think, I could have reached out and should have reached out, and probably had that conversation. Who knows? Did I try even once?
Yeah. And that's the $1,000,000 question, isn't it? Did I try even once?
Yes.
So I'm going to just do a quick invite to Love and Emily and Carrie and Terrence and Marcus. We'd love to have you come up and share what your experiences are, what your thoughts are. Am I off my rocker? Am I looking at blue sky and saying, this blue sky, we can create anything? And for me, I know, having come from a divorced home, having come from the place where My father and mother both remarried within a year, and yet there was animosity that my stepmother was now being a mother to two of my mom's children. And I look at it, looking back now, especially as an adult, I was a Dennis the Menace at 8 years old that my mother and my stepfather couldn't control. And I'd been booted out of two private schools, one of them a boarding school. So the future was not looking good. And yet my mom, come to find out, was her heart was broken at having to let me go. So now as an adult, I see the possibility of amazing communication, the kind of communication where we talk about the hard things. We talk about the issues, the problems. We talk about the disagreements or the fact that we ought to come up with a compromise versus, well, you're wrong and I'm right, or you're wrong and I'm right, and then ending up nowhere. And the kid is confused, bounces back and forth between the two ideologies, and then ends up messed up. And we wonder why.
Exactly. We wonder why.
So I see Marcus took our invitation and popped up on stage. And Marcus, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Marcus Morgan Valentine. And would love to hear your thoughts on this topic, answer any questions, hear any contributions. The microphone is yours, Marcus. Are you there, Marcus?
It's me, Coach.
Hey, Jeanette, how are you?
I'm good.
I see you're in the Ziegler room.
I am.
We also have the 24-hour Bible study room going at the same time.
Oh, wow. That's where everybody is. I'm like, wait a minute. Where is everybody?
Do you want me to pull you in?
No, I'll find it, Coach. That's
Hey,
okay.
no, here we go. I'll put the I will
You'll link it?
That's a good question. I was just about to link it, but you can't link between the phones if it's not connected.
Too late. I'm leaving. Bye. There you are. That is so fun. Coach, you're just getting too technical there. Oh, my
I was missing you, Janet.
Hi, Chris. And Chris Collins just popped up on stage. How are you, Chris?
I'm wonderful, Coach. How you doing?
Good. I'm going to put a link in into your back channel to get you over to the right spot as well.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, Jeanette.
That is hilarious.
All right, Sujata, bring Jeanette up to speed while I send myself a text.
Well, Janet, we are continuing from yesterday's topic. So you already know the topic. And we are talking about how difficult it is, to have these conversations in families which are split or which are broken or which are divorced. And we choose sometimes not to talk about it, not to do anything about it, probably have regrets later on. And, when um, couples are fighting or are in a toxic situation back and forth, what happens to the kid who's caught between crossfires of ideologies?
Well, that's an excellent topic. It is. It's a really good topic, and hopefully, someone here will learn something on what it takes to really, to mend those broken ties. Are you asking me to share now?
Yes, if you want, go for it.
Oh, all right. Look, whenever you have those broken relationships, we talked about this during the week. There's conflict that occurs, and no one wants to address the conflict. So instead of confronting it head on and exchanging the communication that needs to take place for healing, they decide they don't want the conflict and they walk away because they don't want to deal with the conflict. And many times, after years and years and years of not talking, they can't ever remember what the conflict was. Here's the interesting part of it. When it comes to a family, when you have two members that have this conflict and they go their separate ways, nobody tries to mend it. No one tries to mediate it. No one tries to talk to both sides. Instead, you have that drama mode. Which side are they going to take? You always want that person that is able to have that wisdom in order to resolve and mediate those type of conflicts. But that's happening less and less. You're not seeing those people step up. It's almost like they love the drama. They love to see the drama and what can come out of it next. And it just festers year over year over year. It all comes down to, when you have a disagreement with someone, it's okay to disagree, but it's not healthy to maintain a disagreement, mentally or physically. It will eat you alive both ways. So I'm interested in hearing other people join in on that topic. Thank you for letting me share.
You are welcome, Jeanette. And Marcus, did you want to chime in? I know you popped up on stage a little bit ago. And maybe if your mic is stuck, we've been having a lot of issues on Clubhouse with sticky mics, we call it. The way to unstick it is to leave quietly and then immediately hit the button in the hallway. And that'll bring you right back into the room, and it takes about 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Look at that. 5 seconds it was. Now, does it work now, Marcus? Oh, come on. That's the first time it hasn't worked. All right, I'm going to try something here, Marcus. I'm going to put you in the audience and bring you back up and see if that helps. See if that works this time. Sent him an invite. You want to see if you can ping him up, Sister Jeanette or Sujata?
Yes.
Some reason. Oh, he has a bad connection here in East London in the UK.
Marcus.
Well, Marcus, if you have a question or a contribution and you want to throw it in the room chat, I will repeat it and say it out loud, and we can discuss it. So that would be amazing, since the room chat, the back chat, is working for you. I love what Love Peace wrote. She says sometimes one person is disordered - a narcissist. Now, the interesting thing about that is, the thing that I've found is when I can get both parties separately, as a coach, both parties to be interested in raising their children powerfully, what ends up happening is they end up setting some of those tendencies aside for specifically moving the children forward. Now, it requires a lot of attention. It requires a lot of monitoring. I would say in the first few times that I worked with this situation, the number of calls between our regular calls as a coach were frequent. And the thing that I found that kept showing up was the return to old habits, the return to being upset because the partner said the same thing again and again, or did the same thing. And when I looked at what it was they kept saying, it was, as one of my friends alludes to, a serious case of a broken toe that they refuse to let heal, or refuse to be responsible in supporting the healing of that broken toe. And what do I mean by that? Is that there's a conversation that had to be had between them and the children, owning responsibility for the upset that was a big part of the divorce or the separation. And it wasn't until I was able to say, look, this isn't about you having to go to jail. This is about you owning your humanity, that says you were instrumental in doing things that didn't work in a marriage, just like your significant other was. And when the two of you both did those unworkable things, what ended up happening was this poop pile. And now you're both too stubborn to give it up. Well, my goal is to have you get rid of the stubbornness in honor of the children, in honor of creating a new level of a communication such that your children see what's possible in the world with forgiveness. And for me, that has to be one of the most fun and amazing opportunities. And to see a big burly dude or a very successful business executive female turn it down a notch, take ownership, and step into a new area of possibility was profound. And that's the game I play, because I've seen it happen. And then the product of that is the kids getting along, the kids having greater and much more impactful relationships, and then their kids have amazing grandparents. And at this point, what ends up starting to happen is people realize, yeah, we didn't get along, and there were differences that caused us to be very negative toward each other, point the finger, yell at each other, do things that were very unworkable and had no integrity. And now we can support the integrity of a new relationship and really create powerfully. And our interest is in having our kids have an extraordinary life, which then means our grandkids will also have an extraordinary life. And now the cycle is broken. So there we have it. Sujata, I pass you the mic.
Nobody wants to share?
I don't know. I just gave it to you first.
Okay. No, so I'm saying I would like to hear from the others, because I think that these conversations, I'm interested in learning what the others have to share. I believe that difficult conversations have to be talked at least once. And if there is no headway from the other person's side, then you can close a chapter or a door. But one must always make that effort from one side to bridge or make amends, because you shouldn't later on feel, did I try? Should I have tried? And why didn't I? Those regrets can be lifelong. And even when the person has passed on, it may haunt you. So while it is there, one must make an effort.
Amen. All right. Well, Marcus, did you want to try and unhook your mic again? I know he's got bad connection. So did he put something in the chat? Let's see. Oh, love peace does not work with a narcissist. They do not care about the children. If it worked then, not a true narcissist. Narcs never take responsibility. They only blame. Some refuse to deal with personal trauma, leaving the other no other choice but to focus on self and the kids. This is true. From some points, this is only a fantasy with narcs. Unfortunately, it never works with a true narcissist. Last try, total blessings. Did you try? Did it come? Did it work? Total blessings. I didn't see the mic come off.
No.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Marcus.
Yes. It's a miracle.
Yes.
There's always change. I hope that everyone is okay. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for this great invite. It's great to be able to just be here, just to hear first, and then see if there's anything I can add. The thing I would first say to you is my biggest problem I ever had in regards to family, more than anything else, was my relationship with my dad. My dad was someone that went out to work all the time, great guy, everyone really liked him, he was quite quiet, never got involved in people's business. The only thing is that I was very different from him in character, so I wanted hugs and loves and be told I was loved and all that sort of stuff. And my dad was like, I've given you a home, food, and everything else is fine. And it took me a long time. I hated my father. I hate other people in regards to relationships. I was getting on very well with certain people across the world, but not my own dad. That lived at home. He wasn't estranged from my mother or anything like that. And then one day, I know everyone does things different ways, but I am a believer, and I was like, God will help me in this thing, man. And I literally passed the store and I heard, Mr. Chapman will help you. And I got a book called, it was by Dr. Gary Chapman. It was specifically dealing with the love languages. I said, but I'm not in a relationship here. I'm trying to get help with my dad. He said, but this is where you made the mistake, Marcus. Often what people do is in relationships, in conversations, in interactions, we change our position without telling other people. Or we change the way we want to do things or need something else. And there's no one actually giving that information in the way that they can actually interpret and do. And therefore, because of that, we don't even know that's happening. So as far as my dad's concerned, I've told you I've loved you. I've given you everything you need. You've got a great home, you've got good clothes, you're doing well. But what didn't happen is I couldn't find the words to be able to actually give him the narrative behind my real need. I just get said, that's what it is that helped me change my relationship with my father. Now we have the most tightest, amazing relationship. I said him every opportunity. I told the whole world about my father, as I'm even doing here in Clubhouse. But I also think just to add, that's just one of my many, many stories, because you'll see in my profile, I've actually got 11 disabilities and loads of different things that's happened to me, but I've never allowed it to stop me if I can. Because one thing I'm really sure of is that I might not be able to change other people's position, but I always have the capacity, propensity, and want to change my own. And that's where I'm moving power first and try and empower other people to make them have, see the same thing sort of happening. So, any questions, anyone?
Well, I don't have any questions. I just have basically a compliment and an acknowledgement and a thank you for doing the work that you did, creating the conversations that you have, making space for your father inside of his listening as opposed to your listening. And congratulations on having a wonderful relationship. I know that the work that I did with my mom and my dad and my stepmom left me with an amazing opportunity, because my mom was the last one living, and I got to have a great relationship with her for the last few years she was alive. And my dad and my stepmom was like my real mother. I went to live with her in France, and then basically lived with her and grew up with her and was disciplined by her and loved her and hugged by her, and learned to cook from her and learned how to type on a typewriter and all of these different things, and ski. She taught me how to downhill ski. She taught me how to drive, because she could drive better than my dad, because she drove in World War II with very limited light in downtown London and used to back trailers up onto the docks of Dover. So for me, I was blessed to have an amazing stepmother who loved me very much. And, the reward was she made me an executor of her will, because we were that close. And, Marcus, I'm just, it takes something. It takes giving up being right. And I know that there's Love has shared in the back channel a lot about narcissism. And, are all people able to shift off their point of view? No, not all. Of course, I'm looking for the 95 percentile, 99 if possible. And I know that when a parent finds the love of their child important and the raising of their child important, they will move mountains in their own personalities when it is made evident that there is a reward at the end of it that is greater than being right about their position. And the reward comes down the road, and I call that reward grandkids. Grandkids move mountains. And yes, serial narcissists, people that are clinically at the highest level of narcissism, they have a tough life to begin with. They're lucky about how they live their life, maintain their job. In fact, a lot of them I know own their own companies and are very successful and have plenty of money and still deal with how narcissistic they are. And the people that hang around them, go to parties with them, are all people that are able to live with the narcissistic traits. And my goal with children in those families is to create a space of understanding with the rest of the family, and then create a space of warmth and welcome that over time might provide access to something new and different. And with that, I pass the mic over to Chris. I'd love to hear from Chris. Excuse me.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing. When I grew up, I didn't get told that about I love yous and all that. And, alcohol was more important to my father than I was. But it was all the experiences through life, going through the good and the bad. I mean, at 4 years old, I didn't want to be here. And I told my dad that I would never do to my kids what he did to me. And I was one put that alcohol in front of me because he would rather go hang out at a bar than to come home. And I wound up having 6 stepkids and 4 of my own. And every other weekend I had at least 9 kids. Usually I had my nieces and stuff as well. Because I wanted them all to be able to be taught something and learn something. Go fishing, go bowling, go play ball. Didn't matter what it was. But I also wanted them to know that they were loved. And I told them every day in some way or another. And I showed them. But I also told them, if you have to say something that's going to hurt someone's feelings, don't say it. Because that's that narcissistic part. That's that power over someone part that you don't need to say everything that's on your mind. Your mind is a creator. It creates every second of the day. Is it a good one or a bad one? I know Coach has heard me say this before, but we have free will. We have choices. And one is we need to learn from the experiences that we have gone through, and we have to figure out the ways to show our children that this does happen, but it don't have to happen to them. Have to give them the opportunity to create without being told they can't do something, because our children are amazing. You're amazing. And you've been told you can't do something in the past. You've thought in your mind you couldn't do something in the past. I'm going to let you know you can do anything that you think about. You can do it. Some people might do it better than you. That's all right. Surround them. Learn from them. Because then you'll get as good as they are. Because I learned to surround myself with people with MBAs and PhDs and Coach Les. Me and him's had conversations, and I appreciate every one of them. I do try to spend a moment or two every day with him because he brings something positive to my life. And that's the thing. I would rather think of something positive or hear something positive to know that is the direction I need to be going. That's what I needed to hear, whether I thought I needed to hear it or not. But if I paid attention, I can get all that experience for free. Coach Les gives it to me all the time. And it's the one thing I can do for free is pay attention. And my brain, you know, it only brings in 40 megabytes of information per second on the conscious level. But on the subconscious level, it's bringing in over 200,000 megabytes of information. And now I try to pull from that subconscious and put it at my conscious, and I want to think about it. But I don't want to think about the bad things that I went through in life. I want to think of what I'm going to do today to make tomorrow better tomorrow, so I know that yesterday never happened again. And it's taken an open mind to realize that there was a box built. It's what everybody says. Think outside of it. I'm telling you, we broke those walls down. There is no box. There's no limit. As far as you can see, we can make it happen. But it does take your creation of a positive creation instead of a negative one. Don't always judge a book by its cover. You need to open it up and see what's inside. And every person is different, and we all have something inside of us that's different. And that is our mind. Everything else in our body can be swapped back and forth, but you'll never take their brain. And my dad told me before he died, before he got his dementia, and he done battled cancer 3 times. He told me, he said he was sorry. But he also told me that I was the best father he ever seen in his life, even to kids that weren't mine. But that's the part. It takes a village to raise a child. And if I see one slipping, I don't want them to slide. I want them to be able to get grip and go. So I learned to pay it forward, and I'll watch our children pay it back. Thank you, Coach, for giving me a moment.
I love it. Thank you so much, Chris. And I just bumped into Squirrel on my Ziegler Legacy room and did the same thing I did with Jeanette and Chris. And here he is. Mark, what do you say about this fun topic about broken relationships, and inside of those broken relationships, looking at what's the best way to say it? Keeping alive relationships and the work that it takes sometimes to keep family relationships alive and well and fertilized, even when they may have done something that could be called unforgivable. And yet, as Christians, we know everything's forgivable. I pass the mic to you, Squirrel.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Coach. Chris, I absolutely loved your share. Thank you for being authentic and being real and being who you are now. And I appreciate you for that. Now, with the question, Coach, boy, I have come from a broken relationship with children, and I've also have broken things with my relationship with my immediate family, my mother, my father, and even my sister. Sometimes all it takes is some distance. Doesn't mean we still don't necessarily talk. I do forgive. There is much power in forgiveness, and I choose to do that, even if it may be deemed unforgivable. my Savior died for that petty thing. He gave me the ability and the trust and keeping the faith that by using the power of forgiveness and allowing myself to choose to be happy in a moment that's very chaotic and hectic and hurtful is something more that I feel you're giving back to the person, even if it is in that moment. To me, I am giving them the biggest part of myself that I could, and if they choose not to accept that, that is okay. I have done what I know to do for myself, so I can be free of that spirit, that issue, and allow myself to keep moving forward, even though we may not see eye to eye right now, and that's okay. But stopping and just having it out, because I had it out a lot with my parents growing up, and they still show forgiveness with me, and they show me love, even though it is very tough love. They're giving me things that they feel is suitable for me, and once you become a parent, you're always a parent. And having kids for myself now, I have a much deeper understanding now, and I am privileged to have the relationship I have with my family at 37 years old. My father is 60, my mother is 55, and to have the relationship I do with my family now, I think if it wasn't for all the BS that happened, I don't feel we would have the relationship that we have now. It is truly amazing and is continuing to get better and better as life goes on. And that is by people coming together and allowing the growth to happen together as a unit and as a family. And it is a great example to show yourself and my kids as well as others, to see that you can have this, even though things in your life have sucked with your relationships. It's never something that I see is not impossible to have. It has to be a matter of letting go. And letting go is something that isn't always easy to do. But when you want to be free of the resentment and the consistent tugging at each other, when you allow that to go and free yourself of that, things change for you and for your family. So thank you guys for allowing me to speak here.
You are very welcome, Squirrel. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. And with that, I want to pass the mic over to Sister Jeanette. Oh, Chris, did you want to go?
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you for that share, brother.
Oh,
that was it. I was just giving him some love.
Perfect. I'll send the mic back to Sister Jeanette. All right, Marcus, did you want to try and add one more thing before we start to wrap up here?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Les. It was something I'm kind of struggling with sharing, but I really feel that I should.
Okay, I love it.
Oh, wonderful. So what it is there's someone that was part of our family. I won't get into too much details. Part of our family, so much so that actually we were so enmeshed together, nobody even realized that we weren't actually blood family. Anyhow, it so happened that later on in life, that same person ended up to be one of the ones that groomed me, and I was raped by them. And I didn't tell anybody in the family at all until 5 years later. Moving on. when it was it was found that the other family members had been raped by other people and no one could believe it, I then came forward and told them what happened to me. Why am I sharing this? I had to make some decisions really quickly on whether or not I would remain angry. And actually, I guess from my conversations, it will almost appear that I could be right in not forgiving this individual and what happened, etc. But then one day when I was sitting there and I was thinking, I've got some thoughts. I don't want them to keep me trapped. So I don't want them to be trapped, actually, because I've just left everything. It's done. I've been through my head and done my therapy, etc. I was like, what can I really do? Why would I need the why for my reason for doing my action? And then suddenly I looked on on Facebook and the same person's picture came up with 3 of their children. And I just remembered really clearly that the things that we do fall on our children. You know, the world spins on the axis, etc., etc. I won't go into the detail. We all know. And I forgave them. And I forgave their whole family because a lot of them didn't know what was going on. And then I told my entire family on my side that knew about it because it was all a massive secret. And that I'd forgiven. And they were very upset with me, very angry. And then later on, as time went on, they all came to me individually and said, actually, because you've done that, I've now been able to forgive other people I never thought I ever could. Because what they were suddenly faced with was themselves, not even so much my situation. So I don't know who it is that I can just raise that and just be able to share that with, just to be able to help or have that as an additional conversation until we close. But just to say that I always believe that everyone has the opportunity to be forgivable for the thing that they've done, said, or the action they've taken. And that's just because of the grace or just the love or the kindness or what we want to do to ensure that the legacy continues. Because if I came forward, I hold 5 families actually would have been broken. Thank you so much, Les, and the whole Clubhouse family. Thank you.
Wow, that is wonderful. And, I'm once again, Marcus, thank you. I'm very proud that happened because, when it comes to forgiveness, I believe, and I have and I think you'll find this rather fun. I believe that if we don't forgive somebody, the analogy that I always use is that we are constantly eating the rat poison, hoping the rat dies. And when we forgive somebody, we stop eating the rat poison. And then the rat stops showing up as a rat. And something else becomes possible. And my experience with a hurtful experience most recently is in a business endeavor where I went into a business partnership and I was 49% in the company because I had to be based on the ability to use my retirement funds. I could not have, in this particular situation, could not have more than 50%. I had to have less than 50%, i.e. 49%. What that did, though, was that gave permission to my business partner, gave permission to her to throw me out of the company and then not pay me. And so off to court I went. Now, luckily, I was, as a business coach, several of my clients are attorneys. And one of those took it on and said, Les, we're going to go for it. And you can pay me at the end when we win. What I didn't realize that it would take 5 years, and that it not only would it take 5 years, but it would take $115,000 of the reward at the end, which that was well over half of the reward. Part of the reward I didn't get. It's still out there in a court document saying it's owed to me. And the biggest loss for me was losing my family, my Mexican family. And when I saw her the last day in court, when the decision was made and she had handed in the cashier's check to pay two-thirds of what she owed, I went over and I gave her a hug. And I said, I miss you. I miss my family. I love you and I will always love you. And I am mad that money got in the way of our family and friendship. So with that, I just want to, there's a couple of people that just popped up on stage. And I know that we are wrapping up, but I would love to hear from both of them. So I'd love to hear from Michelle and then Sharon. And the topic once again is, how do we forgive the unforgivable in family relationships? Do you have an example? Do you have something to contribute or share in the time that we have left? And Michelle, go for it.
I think I forgave my mom for what she did to me. It took me a long time to forgive her. I guess I had to understand why she did what she did to me. Probably, gosh, in my 30s, I forgave her. I don't think I understood why she did what she did to the kids. You know, it was dysfunctional, but it's worth forgiving. I think for myself, forgiving myself is harder than forgiving somebody. That's what I found in my life, because it is important to forgive ourselves. You know, I think we're hard on ourselves. So that's my take on it, Coach.
Oh, and Michelle, I agree 100%. In fact, I think sometimes we're so hard on ourselves that it becomes more about being hard on ourselves than actually dealing with the facts of what's so and what's missing, the presence of which would make a difference instantly.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just giving you part of myself because it's so easy to not forgive yourself and blaming yourself, and you don't grow. You just don't, because you're just hurting yourself. And can you help me? I know he says forgive others, but doesn't it say in the Bible about forgiving yourself? I mean, that's part of it. I guess maybe I'm getting too direct on that.
It is all. It is. It's all about forgiveness, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
And Christ forgave us all and gave us that space.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of women, I don't know about men, but I think a lot of women have trouble forgiving themselves. I think we're hard on ourselves, but I could be wrong on that. I don't know the statistics of it, but in general, that's how I am, But I've gotten a lot better on that. So, thanks, Coach.
Say that one more time, Michelle. That last bit.
Oh, I said that I have to say that I'm the one that has trouble forgiving myself.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I can forgive anybody, anyone that hurts me, anyone does something wrong, I can forgive them. Or if I do something wrong, or whatever. Like, dummy, why'd you do that? Why? Or why'd you hurt that person? Or, you know what I mean? You gotta forgive yourself, but you can forgive that person. You know, it's easier to forgive a person than yourself. Yeah. So that's what I was saying. The last sentence there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Coach.
You're welcome. Understood. With that, I pass the mic over to Sharon. How are you, Sharon?
I am great, Coach Les. I'm great. Thank you for asking. How are you?
Better than phenomenal, blessed to be alive, and marvelous.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I had children very young, and I was a drinker, and I have not totally forgiven myself for not being a better parent. My kids are grown. One is 47 and one is 38, and so they're grown and they have children of their own. But every now and then my mind goes back to, being loud and foolish and just not the greatest parent. And I have not fully forgiven myself of that. I know that they have, but I just often wonder, God, did I do anything that's going to mess them up or their children or their, something that's going to have like a generational type curse? And instead of letting it go, I always find myself just trying to remember things that I might have done while I was younger. And I just need to just totally forgive myself and let it go. We talk about it, me and my daughters, about how I used to be. They think it's funny and all of that, but it's not. So, yeah, here we are all these years later. I'm 66 years old and still not letting it go. But, I am sorry, and I have, asked them to forgive me, which they have, but I just have not totally let myself off the hook. And I don't know what that's all about, but it is what it is at this point. Thank you for letting me share, Coach Les.
You are very, very welcome. Really appreciate it. And thank you for that perspective as well. For those of you on stage, I know Carrie had her hand up. Carrie, do you want to come up? I was unable to get you to beat the whatever the mess is that's part of Clubhouse. If you want to put your hand up again, perhaps somebody else can.
I tried as well.
You did. Okay.
I didn't see anything go up.
Right there. She's got her hand up.
Oh, there we go.
Yep. See if we can get her up. Come on. There's 8 of us. One of us must be able to get her up. It's so bizarre that the app won't let her come up. There she is. Wah-ha! Woohoo!
Woohoo! Hi, everybody.
Hi, Carrie. How are you?
Hi.
Go ahead, Carrie. The mic's yours.
Because I don't feel that, I mean, even just before, I think she left, but Love was there before, and she was mentioning about narcissism and like what you guys are saying, I totally agree with. Like, I did that. And I think everybody should, like you got to forgive, and you got to, like I had kids, and my husband did terrible things. And I just felt like no matter what, they still have to be subjected to him and his family, who also did very cruel things. But I would have more control over their environment and stuff by keeping the peace and raising them as maybe more to be more whole. Because when I was a kid, my parents, they got divorced when I was really young, and I always had it in my head that I wonder if my mom had been more forgiven, and if she had tried a little harder, if my father had tried a little harder. They just always felt like, I wanted to have two parents, and I didn't get that, and I know now my mom did the right thing. He remarried, and he married a woman that, I've grown to love, but she drank with him every day. And my mom didn't, do that. So I could see where he found his soulmate in the end. But, and that my mom had a right to live a life the way she wanted to live, outside of like bars and that kind of stuff. So, but with that, like, I had my kids, and I just felt like it was my duty to just raise them in the best environment that I could. And I put on this facade, and just to everybody, and it didn't matter. I needed to anyway, because I didn't know the terms, and I didn't even really know the meaning of narcissism. Like I thought that meant somebody was like just like self-centered, like they thought that they were all that, which he did. But it's so much more. And now that I know, I feel like a fool, but I also feel like I will never forgive him. I can't. And you just said that thing about the rat poison, and I get it. I do get it. It's just that, like, I'm in the thick of it right now, and I'm battling, in divorce court, and like my kids, the cable got turned off today, and every time I try to divorce him, mind you, it's 26 years later, he cuts us off financially, and I have to cave. I can't afford to make the payment to the credit card that I'm paying for everything with. The food, the electric was turned off, just everything. And I was at the door with a baby on my hip, begging the electric company not to turn it off. And here I am now, and it's happening again. And I'm just like, you know what? Let him turn it off. Like, I'm not caving this time, and I'm not going to forgive. I understand, like, if I go back to like the things I've been taught throughout my life about forgiving, is like, I don't have to accept him back into my life to forgive him. So I get that, and I guess I'll somehow work on that at some point. But I don't want to eat rat poison. Like, and I know like I have to figure this out. But I get it, and I do agree with you guys.
And Carrie, I know it's not easy. Trust me. Going to the point of being penniless, and then the only rescue I had was that I had really good credit. So I had credit card debt that I could credit cards that I could use to stay afloat and keep my house and keep my car. It's one of those things where I look and go, I don't want to die having not forgiven somebody. I don't want to die. Yeah.
May I?
Of course.
So, Carrie, I just want to tell you, first of all, a big hug. And since I know the details of what you have gone through, everything is not an absolute, and everything is not on the same page. What you went through and are going through is something which is called plain crime. And I think that you standing up and being brave about it and taking steps to have a life of your own with respect and dignity speaks volumes. So don't be hard on yourself. The first you have to heal, first you have to get out of this situation. Then we can talk of forgiveness and forgetting. That's what I wanted to tell you.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with what Sujata just said too, Carrie, and that is all of this is timing, right? All of this is being being gracious with ourselves. You know, I think when we can find that peace within us and we can take a deep breath, I am just so thrilled to hear the work that some of you on this stage have done and continue to do. And for me, that has made this conversation 100% worthwhile. Sujata, I know, I mean, I'm going to take it for granted that you concur. And, you know, I believe that there's still more layers of this onion out there. There's still more opportunities. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you to everybody. Sujata, anything else for you?
I really loved the room today and the share because they were deep, profound, and no holds barred. And I appreciate that because when you share with us, you know, can we can be there for you, we can support you, and we can learn also from the steps that you take because they could be inspiring to us as well. So thank you so much. Coach Les?
I saw that. I see it. I see the graciousness of each person. Oops, my phone just picked that up as me asking for Siri. I thank you as well, Sujata, for participating in this room. And Terrence, thank you for participating in the back chat. And for everybody up on stage, Marcus, thank you for trying like 6 times to finally be able to share with us on stage. Sharon, it's great to hear you. Michelle, always. Squirrel, phenomenal to hear you. Chris, thank you for your heart. Jeanette, thank you for your time. And appreciate each and every one of you. Love you all. Sujata, anything else for you?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Well, unless anybody has a burning desire to share anything, they want to flash their mic. If not, I'm going to end this room the way that I always do. This room will self-destruct in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here on live, I want to just take a minute to say cheerio, play a couple videos, and Sujata, I'll be right with you.
Coaching with Les has doubled my practice.
We've increased our sales by about 33%, blowing all of our goals out of the water.
In my first 6 months, I actually grew my business with his help over 500%. literally 500%.
Les Hill is the type of person that invests back in you and back into your company. So if you're looking for a business coach with integrity, choose Les Hill.